This episode features a conversation I had with Nate Skelly of Financial Pathway. Now, Nate is no stranger to the podcast. He is a financial advisor and planner, and he is really an incredible resource for churches, pastors, and really anybody who wants to understand more about being wise stewards of their finances. He gives advice on investing, planning, and so on and so forth. He does have a podcast, and you can connect with him at his website, nateskelly.com. Now, there is a resource that we refer to, the Confronting Poverty Theology Report. And if you want to access that, make sure that you see the link in the show notes, or simply go to mustincrease.com/Nate. That's mustincrease.com/Nate. If you're watching or listening, it might be helpful to follow along with this report because we refer to it pretty often throughout the conversation. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for today's episode as we look to increase truth and inspire hope in the lives of others. Welcome to the Must Increase podcast.
I love Loom, man.
Loom, yeah. It's. I discovered it. Like beginning of last year, and I did the free version, for the longest time, where I think you give it like 25 videos, and then I immediately was like, no, I'm just gonna pay for it because it is so worth, what it does and everything. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Do you use did you say you use the free version or do you use the paid version?
I use the paid version now. Yeah. Because
I've just only had the free version so far, and it's been fine. Like, usually I'll use it just like if somebody has a question and I'm like, let me get back to you on that, but I also want to give a little bit deeper explanation, especially a visual explanation. Like I can go into a client's account and be like, okay, so look at this. So this is this here, or this is how you open it, or you go and click this. Actually, I probably should expand on that as part of like my onboarding process, to have some sort of general explainer videos. I feel like it's so much more helpful.
Yeah, it really is. And that's kind of what I've started doing. Like that video that I just sent you, I actually made that originally for Matt Gleb when I had him on. And I was like, oh yeah, like as long as I don't say somebody's name at the beginning, you can take it and share it with the next guy, So it is. Yeah. So I need to do more with it, like you're saying, but I have a lot of, I say a lot, I have a handful of them that I've made. And so whenever, a client or something happens, I'm just like, oh, I've got this video, check it out. It's
right. Like,
it's
talk about
great.
Efficiency of your time too. Right when the same issue comes up, you just, here it is. There's how to do it.
That's the other reason I went ahead and upgraded to the paid version, because, you don't have I kept running into the 25 video limit. And so I'd go and like delete old ones. And I was like, yeah, okay. And you have the 5-minute limit too, which sometimes I need to go a little bit longer. So, yeah, it's worth it. Now, Dropbox just came out with something, and because I've had Dropbox, like been paying for Dropbox for years, and they just came out with like an equivalent to it called Capture. It's basically the exact same thing, but I don't know. There's something about the interface that's not quite doing it for me, because I'm like, well, I'm already paying for Dropbox. I could drop Loom, but I don't know. Loom just seems to do it still better. The nice thing about the Dropbox one is you can like create GIFs, whatever they're called. So you can like do a little screen recording. Obviously it's not going to do audio, but it's going to generate just a little GIF that you can send, and then somebody can, watch. I mean, it's good for like a short, 20-30 second quick. So that's another one that's out there.
Loom does that, or Dropbox does that?
Dropbox. I don't think Loom does that, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they, because I mean, I'm like, is Loom going to sue Dropbox? Because it literally is just a straight ripoff. Like even the way it lays out and the interface and everything. So I'm sure they'll just steal features from each other. But if you're already paying, what's that?
I was just going to say, I feel like it'd be hard to trademark screen recording though.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
like
yeah. Yeah, I'm more looking at it from the angle of, like I said, the layout, the interface, like it
yeah.
looks very similar, but yeah, I mean, how it's screen recording, you know. I mean, I used to use just QuickTime built into the Mac for the longest time to do screen recordings before I
Oh,
discovered Loom.
yeah, I
Um,
didn't realize it was a thing.
yeah, yeah, but Loom lets you, you know, add the little, you know, the little thumbnail of your face and the camera in the bottom, and I just like how
Yeah.
it's in real time, basically uploading it, and so within seconds of finishing, depending on your internet speed, it's just ready to go. So, and the
Mhm.
transcript feature, that's another reason I paid for it. It'll transcribe the audio and the video, and so if
Um,
somebody, it automatically generates the subtitles, and if somebody, because what I'll do sometimes is, some people, it depends, because some people are like, they like the video, and then some people are like, I don't want to watch a video, I'm not in a place where I can, you know, watch it and listen to it right now. So sometimes I'll just send over the video, and then I'll paste the transcript in the email too, and be like, hey, you know, here's a rough transcript if you don't have time to watch this right now.
yeah.
And that seems to help. Or you paste the transcript in Chat GPT, and it cleans it up and makes it all and makes it all like actual, like not looking like a rough transcript. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Have you used that a good bit in for your purposes?
you know, it's one of those things where I have, I can think of applications for it, but I just never, like, I not never, I just have to remind myself, like, oh, it's there. And I feel like anytime I get on it, it's down, you know, it's like down half the time. Of course, now you can
I'm,
pay like $20 a month, basically just paying for it to never go down. Like you get like priority access and some other features and
oh,
stuff. So I
I'm
mean, the
sure it
free
has
version's still out there, but
application.
yeah.
Yeah, like I'm sure there's ways I could probably use it, but it almost feels like a chore to try to think of something for it to do for me other than just playing around with it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I know you and I have talked about how you want to do more with like your blog and writing before.
Hmm.
I mean, you can just tell it like, hey, give me a 500 word blog post about whatever the stock market. That's probably
Right.
too broad, and but it'll generate it. And then
Can
you
it
can
do
even
things
say,
like could I feed into it like audio from my podcasts?
well,
is that a option?
so that's like I said, if you have something that'll transcribe it, like Loom, which will, you
Mm.
know,
Oh,
like I said,
right. And
so
then
so
feed.
yeah. Another thing I've done is, and I've only done this a
Yeah.
handful of times. I went to a video that I made, like a shorter video, copied the transcript, fed it to Chat GPT, and said, "Hey, turn this into a blog post that's 1,000 words," and it spits it out, and then I take it and I paste it on, you know, as a blog post on my website. Now,
Hmm.
the issue with that is that Google is um, already getting programmed the algorithms to check and detect. Like you can, like, a
Yeah.
machine can detect if a machine wrote it, basically. And
Right.
so, you know, and so if you're, I'm sure that, right, like in the near future we'll get away with it, but eventually it's going to get to where basically I'm sure Google will say, okay, if a real person didn't write this, we're not going to give you the search results you're looking for, you know, which,
Right.
okay, that kind of keeps everything human and fair and whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of applications for it. Like I mean,
Yeah.
it's scary on one hand, but it's really interesting on the other.
Well, like I think it's BuzzFeed. They've already been doing a ton of articles that are just AI generated, you know,
Yeah,
like and not like publicly broadcasting it like, hey, we're doing AI generate, but it's also not like a big secret either. It's not like they're
yeah,
like trying to, oh no, no, shh, shh.
yeah.
So,
Well, because that's the thing. Like I don't know. Like people are trying to make it out to be an ethical thing, but I'm like, well, you're not plagiarizing because it's a machine. Like you're just, you know what I'm saying? Like it's
yeah.
not your original work necessarily. But like when for example, like I said, if I take a video that I did or a podcast episode, have it just take the transcript and just have it cleaned up. That's my original work. They're just like the machine
Mhm.
is just cleaning it up for me. And I don't know. Like
Right.
again, it is definitely interesting, a new interesting world of tech that
Yeah.
we're entering into.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary in a lot of ways. Like I think the thing that for me right now is the even scarier one is like deep fake. technology.
Yes.
Like the ability
Yes.
to take, like a Joe Rogan or Joe Biden or just like any person you want and make it seem like they're saying whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like, how do you, and like, especially like in politics, like this upcoming presidential election, like, are we going to see something like that? Are we going to see some kind of like deep fake video where it shows a candidate saying something like really like off base? And you're like,
Hmm.
wait a second,
Yeah.
or conversely, can that just be the excuse? No,
Hmm.
that's a deep fake. That's just generated. That's not
Yeah.
real. And it
Yeah.
just, whatever you want to believe, you'll just believe about it.
Yeah.
If
I
you don't
mean,
like the person, you'd be like, no, it's real. If you like the person, you'd be like, oh, it's obviously fake.
yeah. I mean, we are within years of it being unrecognizable, between, because like now, yeah, the deep fake stuff, like you can still kind of tell, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's getting freakishly close. There's this account that pops up on Instagram every once in a while, and all that they do is they take Arnold Schwarzenegger's face and voice and they impose it onto the faces and voices of like popular movie scenes. So like
Yes.
they did it with like on Titanic. Like I just saw one with Titanic and whatever, and like it's the girl. So she's like all the like, flirting with Leonardo DiCaprio and all this stuff. And but it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it's so disturbing, but it's hilarious. And so and it does like it, like you obviously know it's not real, but it looks
Right.
very real. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is crazy stuff. But um well, hey, you sent over this survey report from the
Mhm.
survey you did. So
Yeah.
I've kind of skimmed it over, but man, if you want to kind of just kind of take it away and kind of maybe just start the conversation about this, and then
Yeah.
I'll just kind of ask questions, and we'll just do like we've done. Well, and welcome back. It's
Yeah.
been a while. It's been
Yeah.
this is your annual podcast appearance. So
Yeah. Well, although I'm trying to think, I mean, I didn't actually go back and look. I don't even know if I made a 2022 appearance. So maybe I was put on timeout for a little while,
oh,
put on
maybe
probation.
no. I feel like you did. I feel like you did. I feel like
Maybe, maybe.
it's always around this time. It's always somewhere between
Yeah.
like
So maybe it was early
January and March.
2022. Maybe that's why it feels a long time ago.
Man, well,
Yeah.
you know what? I'll get you back on here as often as you want to come. I mean, you're welcome anytime. So there's that open
I
invitation.
appreciate it.
But no, so here is the premise of your you did this survey and you kind of generated this report based off of this. And by the way, is this available anywhere on your website? Or I mean, like I can throw a link to the show notes or whatever if you want to make this available.
I'm happy to make this available. I put it out there a while back, so you'd have to scroll pretty far back in my Facebook feed to find the link to get it. But yeah, I'll provide a link. You can put it in the show notes, and if people
Okay.
want to download this. So like, yeah, the premise behind it was a financial pathway, which is my business, and I do investment management and financial planning. Just by default, I was working with a lot of pastors, a lot of ministry leaders, because my dad's pastor, and I
Mm-hmm.
went to Bible college, and it's a lot of people that I know and a lot of people that know me. So it wasn't purposeful. It wasn't like I'm going to be a financial planner for pastors and ministry leaders, but that's who my message was resonating a lot with, and that's who I have
Mm-hmm.
connections with. So I thought I really need to do some due diligence and understand very carefully, like take a very close look at what are the unique financial challenges that are facing pastors, particularly ministry leaders in general. Maybe you're not a pastor, but maybe Christian school principal, maybe a missionary, like just within Christian ministry, generally speaking. And I feel like, especially in this world that I'm in financial planning, it's so broad. Like there's so many different possible things that people are facing, different scenarios. It's hard to be a generalist when it comes to financial advice. It just really is. And I think more and more what we're seeing in our world is people that want to be excellent in the advice and planning that they give probably should have a specialty, probably should have an area of expertise, because not only does that make it more efficient for your client, but it also makes it more efficient for you. If most of the questions and issues that I'm facing are common, then I really become the subject matter expert. And then for the person that I'm working with, it makes it so much easier for them, because instead of me constantly having to say, well, actually, I don't really know. I've never run into that. Let me do some research. Let me try to find out about that for you. No, I already know. Well, here it
Mhm.
is. This is the rule. This is what it is for housing allowance. This is what it is for, 403Bs or whatever the issue happens to be. But I just wanted to know a little bit more emotionally, a little bit more of the thought process behind all of this, not just the numbers and figures. So I
Yeah.
did dozens of interviews. I sent out a bunch of surveys to mostly pastors, but just several different ministry leaders in different roles. And I asked them the same questions. And I just really kind of tried to get down to this. What are the unique financial challenges that pastors face? And just a little bit of background on this, Luke. For probably most of the people listening know my dad, Kurt Skelly, and you may not really
Yeah, a
know
few
his.
people know of him. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how broad or I just know a lot of people that and I know know my dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so but maybe not everybody kind of knows Kurt Skelly before he had a very public ministry and
Mhm.
spoke at conferences and that sort of thing. So he grew up in Connecticut. After Bible college, he moved to Connecticut, worked at a church there. So he was the youth pastor. He was teaching in the Christian school. He planted a church. Like this is all simultaneously now. These are not like
Mhm.
at different points. At the
Yeah.
same time,
Yeah.
youth pastor, Christian school teacher, church planter. So he would go on Sunday afternoons and go up to Enfield, Connecticut,
Wow.
and do afternoon services there. He worked at the car rental agency on Saturday. One night a week, he would work at a care home facility. We had three. It was me and my two brothers at the time, so three kids. And he was just doing all of these things. He made $15,000 a year.
Wow. Like
It was like
accumulatively from all of those different side
it
jobs and
was
gigs?
15. Yeah, I $15,000 a year. Like now, I
Yeah.
mean, this is back in early 1990s. So I
Yeah.
mean, you adjust for inflation, but like still, even if you adjust for
It's,
inflation, that's not a
it's not
lot of
great.
money.
Yeah.
And living in Connecticut, pretty expensive area of the country to live in. We were just barely making it by. And as a
Mhm.
kid, you don't really know any different. We lived in this small apartment complex, and my dad had a little Toyota that drove around everywhere, and we were fine. And
Yeah.
he'll tell you that it wasn't like, oh, boo-hoo, poor me. Like it was great. We had it was a wonderful season of life, and he loved what he did. But it was just that was, I think, the mentality for many, many years in ministry
Mhm.
was you don't like money is you don't think about the money. You just
Yeah.
serve God. You just go 100 miles an hour and do everything and trust God to take care of you. And I think that mentality has changed, and I think it's a good thing. Obviously, anybody who's going to be going into ministry for the money, the joke's on you,
Yeah.
because that's almost definitely not going to be the case, unless you're Kenneth Copeland or Joel Osteen,
Yeah.
money's not money's not usually that great. But at the same time, there are some very real challenges that came along with that. And I think for a lot of guys in my dad's generation and older, what they were told, maybe explicitly or at least, subconsciously, was you work, serve God, and you just trust Him to provide, and you really don't take any steps on your personal finances.
Mm.
Retirement, what is that? You retire when you're dead. Like,
Yeah.
um, and I think that's actually been very, very detrimental to a
Yeah.
lot of pastors and ministry leaders. And I think right now, what we're seeing is a lot of this, my generation is coming into this saying, I'm not going to do the same thing. Because what they're seeing
Mhm.
is a lot of older pastors who are 65, 70, 75, even older sometimes, and they
Mm.
literally cannot retire.
Yeah.
Like they can't
Yeah.
get out of ministry because they don't have anything. A lot of them opted out of Social Security. On top of that,
Mhm. Mhm.
that wasn't even really part of the survey, but like, so they have nothing. They have literally nothing to fall back on. They haven't saved for retirement, and so they need a paycheck. And so here they are, still working in a church, still pastoring, and they're well beyond their prime. And not only are they struggling, but their churches are struggling.
Yeah.
Because it's time for them to move on. It's time to hand over the workload to somebody who's younger and has more energy and more vision and all of that. And so it's collateral damage is what it is. So, so I talked to pastors and I asked them questions about their unique personal challenges and just a bunch of different questions. So, the results were really interesting. I'm curious, as you read through because it's like 9 or 10 pages. It's not like a book. It's an executive summary. I'm just curious what stood out to you as far as, because I just sent that over to you here.
Last night. So, I mean, I think for me, it's really this premise of the way you describe this of confronting poverty theology, because it contrasts and maybe with the idea of prosperity gospel, and because that's another thing, not to chase that rabbit too far, but you said Joel Osteen and Kenneth Copeland in particular, and that's kind of one of the things that, Kenneth Copeland in particular, that's what he preaches. Big time prosperity gospel preacher, which is, if you are struggling financially, it's because you don't have enough faith, and so I see the poverty theology as the opposite end of that spectrum, kind of like your Calvinism versus Arminianism. Like it's two extreme, viewpoints of God's sovereignty in that case. And this to me seems like two extreme viewpoints of prosperity gospel. Hey, if you believe it, you can have it, you can achieve it, and you'll be wealthy for it. But then poverty theology here, as you put it, of you just don't worry about the money. God will take care of you. You'll be fine. And there's dangers to both, kind of, like I said, sides of that extreme, those extremes rather. So I think for me, it's just, I'm more fascinated with the premise of it. And, like I said, as I've just giving it a quick overview, I can also relate because it's like, I've been here. You and I both at one point served as, I believe, Christian school teachers. I know I did, and I think you did at one time too. Yep. And they are, that's kind of the notorious position that's like, that's definitely entry level. Ministry is already going to be low pay, and Christian school teachers, like I said, that's definitely the entry level position. Yes, yeah, and I do. I mean, I remember, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's just, it was my mindset. I mean, when I entered into full-time ministry when I was 21 years old, I just thought, as long as I can pay my bills and get by, like, I'm not going to worry about, retirement or whatever, because my mindset was I'll work till I'm dead. And actually, Nate, it was when, several years later, when I had gotten out of ministry, started my own business, and I talked to you, you kind of helped me understand the value of that long-term savings and investment and retirement. Because it finally clicked with me. Obviously there's a lot of components to it, but the part that clicked with it for me was you showed me that, hey, this is the idea of getting your money working for you. Like you're not just putting it in a savings account where you're saving. No, you're investing and it's growing, And so, the idea is like, by the time you are older, if something happens, because some people, as long as they're healthy, they're going to be working, and that's fine. But the idea is that you've got that money working for you. And even if, God forbid, something happened to your health and you can no longer work, you are going to still be provided for. And so anyways, I know that's a very broad answer to the question you asked me there, but getting back to it, like I said, I'm more fascinated with the concept of poverty theology, and then a lot of your findings here on how people see it. And then I really am looking forward to kind of the discussion of like, how do we, I guess, overcome it or see it differently. Well, thanks again for joining us for this episode. We are going to pick up the conversation there next time. And until then, you're going to want to make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, or that you're following us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you want to connect with us, you can head over to mustincrease.com. You can also see the show notes for details about content that we covered in today's episode. Well, I want to thank you for being a part of of our audience and for having a part in our mission of increasing truth and inspiring hope in the lives of others right here on the Must Increase podcast.